This has been the most requested headphone review I've gotten this year, and that says a lot about this product. So I want to say thank you to you all for constantly asking about it in the comments and via email. I really appreciate it because without all of your help, I would not have gotten my hands on these and discovered how much I enjoyed them. Spoiler alert. What's going on, everyone? It's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and yes, we are today finally talking about the Aoun AR5000. AR is an air reference, not assault rifle, but we'll get into FPS performance later in this review for you gamers out there. This is a $300 headphone. It's a pretty remarkable design, and for their first headphone I believe they released, it is a great start for this company. Now I want to start with a very basic but important spec, and that's the fact that this is a 28 ohm impedance, 108 decibel sensitivity headphone. That means it's just stupid easy to drive. You can run this very loudly on a $10 Apple dongle, or if you're gaming and you want to plug it into an Xbox or a PlayStation controller, they will get very loud without needing anything extra. And they do scale well. We'll talk about amps later, but I want to start with that because that's such an important thing to consider for what you're connecting to, and I'm pleased to say it's very easy to drive. When you first get the Aoun AR5000, you start with a pleasant unboxing experience. This is a nicely printed box. You have this little sleeve that you lift up, and it kind of has like some of the Hi-Fi-Man Sandara type vibes when you open it with the silk screen box. Even just removing the lid, you have this nice like copper screen silk fabric material, and then you just lift this up to get to the cable. But it's presented nice. It's not a super expensive headphone, but at $300 it's still a lot of money, and you don't always get a premium unboxing experience at $300, so it's kind of cool to see that. I just want to cover the cable real quick so you know what it comes with. It's a nice cable. I think it's the right length. It's long enough to still make it to a headphone amp on my desk, but short enough for me to still enjoy it with a game controller, and this just easily pops off. It comes with a standard 1/4-inch adapter, and it's terminated with dual 3.5, which is great because that means you can buy essentially any cable out there that is terminated the same way in case you want to upgrade, change the looks, the length, whatever it may be. Now, my particular cable, I'm saying this early before some people skip ahead in some other sections, the left and right is backwards on my cable. And with some music, especially if you're not listening to very familiar tracks, I didn't notice right away. Then I went to start testing my gaming, and I'm like, I can't figure out why this is so weird. Very quickly determined that they are backwards. So it's labeled left and right. All I did was switch the two plugs. I put the right cable on the left and I was good to go. And after that, it's pretty obvious what direction the orientation of the headphone should be because they are angled forward, which I absolutely love. That helps with microphonics issues and comfort because if you're wearing this and you look down or move your head around, you don't have to worry about the cable rubbing into your shoulders. Now, while I have this on my head, let's talk about comfort. These weigh only 350 grams. I think I got 349 on my scale, so they're very lightweight. The pad material is excellent. It's very soft and it's compliant, so if you're concerned with glasses comfort, they're good for that as well. These have a higher resonance frequency, which means that if the seal breaks, you do lose some bass extension. So if you are craving a very bass heavy open back headphone, not too common, but just to put that out there, these are more on the neutral side, but we'll get into sound quality later. It is important to note that at least on the comfort side, it's great. Now, clamp force is rather light as well. It's about 20% lighter than something like a Sennheiser HD560S. So if you are familiar with, $200 headphones, the Sennheisers typically have a stronger clamp. Light clamp, lightweight means it's very comfortable to wear, and because of that soft compliance and a breathable fabric, I can wear these for a long period of time. Now, you can't always see pad dimensions on spec sheets, so I want to cover this as well if you're concerned about how it fits your ear. I have a width of just over 45 millimeters and a height of just about 60 millimeters. So the pad dimensions are quite nice as far as the opening size goes, and with the oval shape, it should fit most ears. Now, the dimensions change depending on the front or rear of the pad because this baffle is heavily angled, which is going to impact staging and imaging. You can see it's a pretty aggressive angle on that driver baffle, which is awesome, but that does follow the same angle as your ears. So even though the front is going to measure rather shallow, we're looking at about 14 millimeters of depth here, the back side is getting closer. Let's just see how close I can get to about 28 millimeters. I say 28, if it looks like 26 or 25 to you, it's because I have a little lip on my particular ruler. So pad depth is great. I don't feel my ears touching the baffle at all, and because the baffle is angled, I have a really nice symmetrical presentation of sound. It's in line, and that does make a difference. Build quality feels excellent as well. There's no creaks, there's no rattles, it's very flexible, and there's a lot of things to like here. Now, this inlay over the grill is metal. This piece is metal. The rest of this chassis is plastic, and you got to keep in mind at $300 to have certain performance capabilities or other features, I wouldn't always expect all metal. Sennheiser uses a huge amount of plastic even on more expensive headphones. So yeah, metal, plastic. This part here is plastic as well, and then obviously the headband itself is metal, and then you have like a full leather pad. It's a really interesting suspension strap. So the way this works, some headphones, they have an adjustable strap, but then this is fixed. Well, with the AR5000, as you slide this up, the headband goes with it. So you always have this very low profile look. It's really nice because once you size this correctly, it's not like a very bulky looking headphone. So I'm not saying this is the right kind of headphone to use when you're traveling, because you don't really want to use an open back for that, but it is nice that it doesn't look too unwieldy on your head either. Now, being an open back headphone, this vent is open and it does leak sound from the outside. Conversely, if you listen to it at louder volumes, people are going to hear what you're hearing, and then you have these ports around the driver cup. The ear pads, even though I wouldn't change them because I feel like I need to, they are very easily removable. It's no glue, there's no special basket or gasket mount or anything like that. It's going to be a little bit interesting to sneak back in there, but once I massage that back in, there we go. So you can remove the pad if they do wear out or if you want to change it over time. And again, because they don't use anything proprietary, it should be easy to switch between the cable or the pads. The only concern I have long term, now this, from what I could tell, in feel, this is plastic right here. Now there is a single metal screw that attaches to the top, like where this rotates from. I have no idea over time, because plastic tends to become brittle over the years. I don't know if this will ever be the failure point of this headphone. My hand feel, and just using it every day, it feels really well made, and there's a nice hard stop. It doesn't feel like it's flexing or anything. So again, I don't know what the long term is. The only physical defect I saw is I have a loose stitch on the headband, but everything else, when you feel it in the hand and the shape, is really nice to handle. So kudos overall. Getting into sound quality, I want to start with the objective side first because it takes my opinion out of it. If you're not familiar with the channel, I use a Gross KB006X style Pinaclone with a 711 coupler clone and an XLR interface. Now, this is great for comparing against other measurements I've done on the same rig. Anytime you change rigs or ears or microphone systems, the measurements can alter slightly, so you don't always want to directly compare to another person's measurements. Thankfully, this list has expanded a lot. I've measured tons of stuff, link in the description for that. So if you look at the frequency response of the Aoun AR5000, you can see why it's so popular already and why a lot of people are enjoying it. It's a fairly neutral sounding headphone, but it's also fairly safe. Don't expect like pounding bass for people who are bass heads out there. It's pretty rare that an open back dynamic in this price is ever going to have an extreme amount of bass. But when you compare it to some other headphones, a couple things will stand out. So just to kind of explain how this works, there is a little bit of roll off below 100 Hertz, but surprisingly not by much. This is actually one of the better extending open back dynamic headphones in this price range. And then there's, again, that touch of warmth. Mid-range are excellent. Mid-range is excellent. There's not a huge scoop in that 1.5K region, which a lot of headphones do nowadays. So the idea of this, why some people do it, is it kind of creates a little bit more sense of space and openness in the headphone. It's kind of like a simulated soundstage effect. Thankfully, it's not too scooped here, so you get a little bit of expansive presentation, but not at the expense of intimacy and vocal forwardness. You still hear vocals quite well, and we'll get into the subjective stuff soon. The only thing that might be a little strong for some people, but this is minor, and again, it's just how my rig measures it, is at 2,850 Hertz is where the strongest peak is. It can be a little bit forward or slightly shouty, I guess, to some people, but it really doesn't come across as an overly shouty headphone. Now, the mid and upper treble is nice as well, and I'm going to translate this into the subjective side because this is just showing how it compares to a Harman curve. You have some upper treble extension, so it does have kind of a shimmery, glistening effect to the sound. But if you compare it to one of my favorite headphones under $500 period, the Sennheiser HD6XX, which in the US is only $200, based off the $350 HD650. You can see why the AR5000 is such an amazing headphone for the price. So there is more bass roll-off on the HD6XX and a comparable mid-range. You can see the scoop at the 1.5K is pretty much not existent at all in the HD6XX, and this is part of why that mid-range timbre is so good on that line from Sennheiser. It just, voices sound incredible on it, has a really nice natural presentation. And then in your mid and upper treble, on the measurement rig, it's somewhat similar. There is less of a recess, as you approach like the ear gain, the pinna gain region. But overall, it's pretty comparable, and I can tell you that regardless of how it measures, the AR5000 comes across as a slightly warmer, a little bit more bass forward headphone, and the treble does come across a little bit brighter than the HD6XO line, if you're familiar with that. Now, just to put it in perspective, I also wanted to highlight the HiFiMan Edition XS, which under $300 now is a killer price for that headphone. You can see that there's comparable bass extension, at least without doing any EQ on the Edition XS. I can tell you the XS does have a much lower resonance frequency, so if you wear glasses and you're concerned with bass loss, the Edition XS might be a better pick for you. Ergonomically, it feels more awkward. It's much larger, heavier drivers because it's a big planar, and the headband leaves some to be desired, whereas this feels much more comfortable. However, that preserves bass if you break seal. This one tends to lose it more. Either way, they both have a similar bass presentation as far as emphasis goes, with the Edition XS having an edge on sub-bass extension. It just seems to dig just a little bit deeper, noticeable on like rap and EDM, whereas this has a little bit better punch to it. If you're listening to rock music, kick drum has a little bit more kick on the AR5000. Now, a reason why I like the AR5000 is because it blends the mid-range and treble performance of both the HD6XX and the Edition XS. You could see the scoop on the HiFiMan is much larger in that 1.5K region, and that's that whole pseudo soundstage effect I was talking about earlier. There's also significantly more treble extension in both the mid and high treble area. So if you want something that has a lot of EQ ability, I think the Edition XS has the edge. It just has an immense power handling, but the Edition XS comes across as thinner sounding in the vocals while also being much more sparkly and brilliant up top. Now, in the interest of saving time, you can use the link if you want to compare against other headphones. Like I said, I've measured things like the HiFiMan Sandara, the Odyssey MM100, the Sivga Luon. There's a lot of headphones I've covered that will have pros and cons. I've reviewed a lot of those, or almost all of them, so look at the channel if you're curious about in-depth coverage on the others. As far as how this sounds to me, I absolutely love this headphone. Now, I always try to stay clear of saying this is the best headphone under $500 or best headphone for X, because we have different preferences, and that's okay. Even if this was my favorite, it doesn't mean it has to be your favorite. Doesn't mean I'm right or wrong either, because again, it's personal preference. So I like what this does because this combines two headphones that I enjoy for different reasons into one. So knowing how much I like the Edition XS for certain tracks and how much I like the 6XO line from Sennheiser for other tracks, if I could only have one headphone between this and both of those, I would pick the AR5000 for the most part. It's really hard to say that, to be honest, just because I love the Sennheiser 650 line, 600, 6XO so much, but I can EQ the treble down just a little. Now, these measure similarly, but this listens a little bit more bright and sparkly. If you're concerned with not so much sibilance, this doesn't have any sibilance issues, but if you're concerned with a more relaxed treble presentation, then yeah, I think you could just stick with the Sennheiser line. But this does wake up the sound a little bit. I think for people who have used the Sennheiser products before and found them a tad boring, but still like and appreciate what they can do at vocals and mid-range quality, this is an amazing headphone to consider because it actually EQs bass better than the Sennheiser line. Bass texture is a whole other thing that, like the quality of the bass. This still has excellent bass quality, but it also does give you more emphasis as well. So if you do want an open back dynamic at this price and you like hip hop, EDM, or jazz, or something that has lower bass notes, even some rock digs pretty deep, this is going to be a little bit more forward there and I think more rewarding and enjoyable. Now, this is all without sacrificing too much on the mid-range either. It's still very, very flat. This is one of the best mid-ranges you can still get under 500. When you compare it to something like the HD6XO line, which is like the gold standard for mid-range, the fact that this is really, really close to that, barely behind, still means it has an excellent sound profile. I find myself enjoying listening on the AR5000 more than most headphones in this price range, with exception of like heavy metal, whereas I think the Sennheiser HD 490 Pro or the 6XX is a little bit more enjoyable for metal, simply because it is slightly more relaxed in the region that heavy metal guitars will typically come across very, very forward and loud. Because this reads a little bit brighter, or it plays a little bit brighter and more energetic, I find that I can't listen to it at slightly louder volumes for that genre. It's excellent for other genres, and overall, minor EQ goes a long way. You can simply do a treble shelf, but just reduce it by a few dB, and then you get the benefits of everything else. The comfort, the power handling, the bass extension. So the upper treble, it does add a shimmer to everything. It's minor, but it's definitely not a subdued, relaxed sound presentation. I think that a lot of people are going to prefer this over a lot of other headphones in this price range. And as an audiophile who really appreciates what Sennheiser's done with the 6XO line, not everyone likes that sound profile because it can come across as a little bit boring to them. They're used to having a little bit more stronger bass, a little bit more treble. This is like doing that, but in a tasteful way, and not sacrificing the mids or something that makes a headphone excellent to people who appreciate that mid-range performance. You don't want to suck out, and you don't want details to be missing either. Now, my favorite thing about the AR5000, and what I've really been excited about the most, it's not to discredit how great it is on music, because it's seriously one of the better headphones for music in this price as well. The gaming performance is just ridiculous. These angle drivers are no joke when it comes to imaging. It really puts the soundstage just slightly forward, or the game presentation slightly forward in the mix. It just sounds fantastic. I'm able to pinpoint audio cues with ease. The resolution of it, the bass extension is enough to make it immersive, but not too boomy or bloated where I don't have the details I'm looking for in footsteps either. I love playing on this with Call of Duty because it's so comfortable while also sounding great. And when you're gaming, you tend to wear these for an extended period of time, or even a long listening session. So comfort's extremely important. And when you add the ability to have excellent imaging performance while also having a great sound profile that's versatile for all different genres, competitive included, this is a freaking knockout. It's honestly been one of my more used headphones in the past month or so. I think I've had this for a few weeks now. But if I don't need the noise isolation, or I'm competing with outside noise in my room, like loud fans, maybe someone's vacuuming, kids are playing, then I would much rather prefer gaming on an open back. And this has been one of my favorites. The only game that I felt like a couple other headphones outperformed this was in Apex Legends. This is again without EQ. But if you're only playing for Apex and you don't want to deal with EQ, then I think the Sennheiser products from the 560S to the 6XX and the 490 Pro, for some reason, they just sound a little bit cleaner to play Apex on. That's partly because that game has a very different sound presentation than a lot of other traditional first-person shooters. This one sounds excellent. I can still play competitively on this, not saying I can't, but this sound signature made it sound almost like too vast, and it was very clear, but it didn't sound as intimate where I was confident in the exact point it was coming from. Whereas the opposite happened with Call of Duty. In Call of Duty, this was much easier to pinpoint stuff than my Sennheiser products. The 560S is a really close runner-up, especially for the value when it comes to FPS gaming, but these are so much more comfortable to me than the 560S that I would much rather spend more. Knowing what I know now, I would just stick with this. So gaming performance is excellent. I think this is going to be like a sleeper hit, and as more people buy this, whether it's for music listening or gaming, they're really going to appreciate what this thing does. It really is a remarkable headphone, and this is their first headphone too. So it's pretty shocking that they came out with such a solid product already, especially at this price. So that kind of wraps up my rant. I didn't script this. I just use this for a lot, and I want to end by just thanking you all, because this is what I love about this community. I as much as I try to observe and keep up with all of the audio trends and news and see what people are talking about, sometimes things fly under the radar. So without you saying, hey, you should check this out, this never would have happened. And I can tell you, it's been one of my favorite audio products I've covered this year. I'm just blown away. So in a sense, thank you. And I hope this video helps you discover something that you may not have known about. And if you get it, I hope you got the same enjoyment I have. If not, shoot me a comment. Let me know what I could have done differently. I never want to mislead people, but there's definitely something special about this. Again, just make sure it's that sound signature you're looking for. Somewhat neutral, a little bit shimmery upper mids and treble. And if you do or are looking for that, this is a freaking banger for $300. So thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'd love to see you in the next video. And with that being said, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.